Welcome to part 2 of the ongoing series Unreleased 3DO M2. I'm going to cover the rules, then jump right into it. The rules for inclusion are simple. There has to be some proof that the game was in development, be it an article in a magazine, known copy of a prototype, a retail order sheet, an interview with a developer, etc. With that, let's get started. This is Retro Impressions Unreleased 3DO M2. Eurofighter 2000 was released on PC to rave reviews. The flight combat simulator was considered by many to be the best of its kind, taking home numerous awards in the simulator category. The game required fairly cutting-edge technology to run, and the M2 offered hardware capable of handling it. With the system being cancelled, Eurofighter was never ported to a home console, keeping it a PC exclusive. Evil Knight, known as Hell Knight in Japan, was an amazing 3-player arcade experience released in 1998 by Konami using the M2. This on-rails shooter offered players the choice between Harry and Joe, who both used a 6-shooter, and Alicia, who relies on a shotgun for survival. The game was limited in release and has remained extremely popular, and mechanically is largely similar to House of the Dead. Depending on your performance, there are 4 possible endings. Unfortunately, the Konami-built M2 arcade boards have experienced an unusually high failure rate, leaving just a handful intact and in operation as of the posting of this video. It's never been ported, and due to the complex architecture of the M2 chips, no emulation has been achieved. If you're lucky enough to see this machine in the wild, be sure you spend what you can to experience it through to the end, because that might be the only opportunity you'll ever have. Back when some of the more obscure consoles were still in production, the games most associated with these brands are not the ones most people associate with these systems today. The CDI, for example, is now remembered for the laughable Zelda games, but back when the system was relevant, no one talked about these as a reason to own the system. Games that sold the CDI were Mutant Body Rampage, The Apprentice, Burn Cycle, and of course, Thunder in Paradise. The 3DO for its part has become associated with FMV games such as Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, along with a vast quantity of other titles not exclusive to the hardware. While these games were popular when the system was relevant, the 3DO was most well known for its incredible arcade-like and forward-thinking games. Ones such as Way of the Warrior, Need for Speed, D, Street Fighter II, and Road Rash were reasons people wanted the system and would have owned it had 3DO priced it right. The list is quite extensive, but at the top of the stack is Gex by Crystal Dynamics. Like numerous companies developing games for the 3DO, Crystal Dynamics benefited greatly from the 3DO's extremely pro-developer licensing program and were the first to sign on as a licensee for the system. Gex was designed as part of the platform animal mascot craze prevalent through the 90s. It was praised for its gameplay, beautiful graphics, and for being what many felt was the first game to utilize professional voice acting, giving the characters a voice that truly belonged to them. The game was so popular, 3DO even included it as a pack-in title, helping to cement it as one of the best-selling 3DO games ever with over 1 million copies sold. Crystal Dynamics was absolutely loyal to 3DO, developing and releasing games on their platform first, then porting them to other consoles down the road. In total, they would release 7 classic 3DO games before the system was pulled from the market. Gex would receive a follow-up announced in early 1997. It was slated for release on the M2, PSX, and N64. Heart of Darkness started development in 1992 with intentions of releasing on the upcoming 3DO and PC. The studio behind the game was founded as a collaboration behind the driving forces responsible for Another World and Flashback. A budget of £1 million was set as Virgin decided to back the project. Fast forward to 1996 and the game was still in development, though a release date for that same year was finally announced, along with Sega securing the rights to release Heart of Darkness on the Saturn as a timed exclusive. June saw an announcement of a port to 3DO's M2, but by December, Virgin had lost faith in the project and pulled funding. For most games, this would have killed them due to disputes over ownership of assets and a development house's ability to survive without funding. For Heart of Darkness, the rights remained with the developer, and after 4 years, the team was determined to not throw away their work no matter what personal sacrifices it took. From December 1996 until September of 1997, the staff would continue to work on the game without compensation and were finally able to present it at the European Computer Trade Show, where Interplay picked up distribution rights, saving it and guaranteeing its release in the process. In July of 1998, the game finally released to rave reviews on PC and the PSX. No one has discussed what happened to the other versions, but by 1998 the Saturn was done and the M2 cancelled, removing any mystery as to why they never released on those systems. Heat of 1198 is an association football game developed by Konami. It was released and remained stuck in arcades using the M2. As with all the games that saw a physical release on M2 hardware, this one is by far the most obscure. Beyond one photo, no video, review, or description of gameplay has survived the internet. A rather odd situation for any big budget game by Konami, no less one that was released to the public. You might be wondering why there is video of the game when I just gave you the spiel. That's because 3 days before recording this episode, a YouTube channel called Igor Stellar posted footage of the game in action, making it the only video of the game online. HMS Carnage, also called Dreadnought, was Ocean's first attempt to move away from movie licenses and start development on their own unique properties. It was a steampunk shooter set on Mars that made use of the most cutting-edge 3D technology available. It also featured 48 minutes of pre-rendered footage designed to tell the story as you progress through the game. Most of the pre-rendered footage was finished and the game demoed at E3 in 1998. It was a technically ambitious project with the PC and M2 being the target platforms, though it was also announced for the PSX and Saturn later on. Near the end of 1998, Infogrames acquired Ocean and cancelled all projects that were further out than 6 months from completion. This was regardless of time and money invested. HMS Carnage fell into this group and was a casualty of the buyout, keeping it unreleased on any system. IMSA World Championship Racing was developed in-house by 3DO as a launch title for the M2. Playable builds were shown off at expos with numerous articles appearing in magazines. The game was directed by Ed Rotberg of Atari Star Wars and Battlezone arcade fame and had a veteran development team behind it to ensure its success. It looked to be a massive step forward for home racing games and was pushed hard along with D2 as standout exclusives that would sell the system. The game was said to be nearly finished when 3DO pulled the plug for reasons related to the M2 being cancelled. For nearly a decade, a small group of 3DO enthusiasts worked to track down info related to unreleased M2 games. As prototype hardware and development systems found their way into public hands, the search intensified. The situation was similar to the Nintendo PlayStation where working hardware existed, but no games or software. Two people were leading unrelated quests to locate IMSA. They were Technorg, also known as Nike X, and Windows Killer. As not much was known about the team behind the game, they reached out to people who held position at 3DO during the game's development in an effort to gain a lead. Technorg would reach out to Phil Burke and Kevin Hester, who were both happy to discuss IMSA, but neither had kept copies of the game. They both echoed the same advice. If anyone had a copy, it would be Tom Bazzano or Ed Rotberg. Unfortunately for Technorg, neither could be reached, and his quest to locate IMSA grew cold. In the meantime, Windows Killer obtained a copy of the game from one of its programmers, Alex Werner, along with a tech demo called Shooter 2D. Windows Killer would release Shooter 2D but refused to dump IMSA, stating that Werner requested the game only be shown but never released. Promises were made to release video of the game in action, but it never happened. Tensions within the M2 community were high, leading to frustration and infighting between people concerned with preserving the game and those in the business of collecting and selling rare and unreleased games who grew tired of the topic of preservation over ownership. As had been done in the past, a petition was started requesting the release of the game, even if it required the community to raise money to compensate Windows Killer for its public release. Windows Killer responded with the following message. 1. I'm not selling it. 2. I'm not releasing it, since it's copyrighted and licensed work, and I'm also not going to risk losing trust of the person who gave it to me. Morality, anyone? 3. It's preserved for the next 30 years, so don't worry. A backup is stored on a DVD RAM Type 1 cartridge, which is in turn stored in a temperature-controlled room. So, please stop your selfishness. You want the game to be preserved? Then be quiet, because it is. You want a copy of it? Sorry, but it won't happen. Things for Technorg weren't lining up. Why would Alex Werner authorize the release of one game and not the other? Trying to track him down had proved impossible before, but Shooter 2D provided something that would solve that problem. As Technorg played through the game, bubbles containing the faces of developers along with their names would appear on screen. Bill Burke, Kevin Hester, Tom Bazzano, Ed Rotberg, and Alex Werner. They were all there. Knowing what Alex looked like, Technorg was able to locate him using Facebook and sent a message. He asked about the M2 and what exactly was the truth behind the copy of IMSA Windows Killer had in his possession. The response was positive and immediate, as they discussed the hardware, 3DO as a company, IMSA, and one major bombshell. It was revealed that when the game was given to Windows Killer, it was with the understanding that he would distribute it to the public. Unbeknownst to Technorg, Alex was already aware of the situation due to a conversation he had with 3DO preservationist BitsRight in early 2009. Alex encouraged BitsRight to talk with the Windows Killer and convince him to do the right thing by releasing the game as he had promised, but that conversation was over a year earlier and no progress had been made as Windows Killer maintained that he would never release the game. The situation was clear. If things were left as they stood, IMSA would remain in the possession of a privateer and never make it to the hands of the public as Alex intended. So he sent a digital copy via email to Technorg, tasking a second person with releasing it to the 3DO community. On July 26, 2010, he made good on his promise, releasing the game on the 3DO Zone forums. It might be impossible to play for all but a handful of people, but due to the efforts of BitsRight and Technorg, it's preserved for future generations. Windows Killer withdrew from the community, though he still maintains a website where some development documents and Shooter 2D can still be downloaded. Technorg has maintained links for IMSA that can still be found on the 3DO Zone forums. A huge thanks to Technorg and BitsRight for being stand-up members of the community while doing their best to preserve what they can. Without people like them, so many games would remain unknown, undocumented, and lost forever. It really is a small group of people doing most of the work, and I salute you. That's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Feel free to leave a positive or negative comment letting me know your thoughts. If you would like to chat or keep up to date on channel-related news, follow me on Twitter at Jenovi. And until next time, you've been watching Retro Impressions.